In this video, I'm going to talk about using pedals in place of amplifiers. Sometimes these are called amp modelers or amp-in-a-box pedals. And you might be wondering, can using a pedal instead of a real amplifier actually sound good? The answer is yes, it can sound good. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 different ways to approach using pedals this way at various levels of price and sophistication. For pill tip number 1, let's start with the pedal that is probably closest to the real thing. Milkman makes something called the Amp. This is a pedal that has a real tube in it. It's basically an amplifier in a big pedal. In fact, whether it's a big pedal or a small amplifier is kind of a philosophical question. But the point is, if you care about analog and you care about tubes and you just want a pedal that gives you those things, that's literally what this is. Okay, so this is one thing, but Milkman and Benson have also just released a version of the same thing that has more of Benson's amp profile. This also is all analog, also has tubes in it. The difference is that this one has more of a Benson vibe, and it starts a little more broken up. There's like more dirt available with this one. This one sounds like this. Milkman sounds like this. I like both. And to be honest, when you have access to 2 different tones like this or 2 different amps, regardless of whether they're amps or pedal amps, my bonus pro tip is the best thing you can do is to double track yourself and use both sounds. By the way, if you want to buy any of the gear in this video, I have affiliate links you can use that'll give me a small commission on anything you purchase. I'll put the affiliate links in the video description. For pill tip number 2, we're going to talk about the Strymon Iridium. This does not have a tube in it. This is digital. That's why, even though it's smaller than the pedals in pill tip number 1, it can imitate different types of amplifiers. You're getting 3 different amplifier types in this pedal. This is what's known as an amp modeler. An amp modeler is just a digital pedal that is emulating other types of amps. They study the sound of the other amps and then they create some digital process that'll make your signal sound like that. I've had this for a long time and I use it on everything. If you've ever watched one of my YouTube videos, this is what I was using as my amplifier. One thing I do with this all the time is I don't just run pedals before it, I also run pedals after it. Since it's a pedal, it's easy to put other pedals after it, which is usually what I do with reverbs. By the way, you can do that with the pedals in the first pro tip too. This is a larger, like, universal pro tip for using amps that are pedals. One of the advantages is it's very easy to put stuff after the amp pedal. So for what you're about to hear, I was using the Strymon Iridium, but I was running that into the Strymon NightSky, and I was just getting a little extra beautiful stereo reverb from this. What you're about to hear me play is a guitar solo I wrote for my friend Blake Fusilier. He has a song called NSA. I play the guitar solo on it, but what you're about to hear is an alternate take. This is the one that did not make the final cut. He said it was too clean. It was like too much what a guitarist would do. And for the final version, which wound up very different, I had to play something more janky and fucked up, which I was happy to do. If you want to hear the final real thing, there's a link to that in the video description. The song is called NSA. It's really cool. For now, you're going to hear the guitarist version that wound up on the cutting room floor. pro tip number 3, we're going to talk about the Boss IR2. This is another amp modeler. It's in the same class as the Strymon Iridium. It's letting you emulate amps and cabinets. Now, we haven't talked about cabinets so far, but the cabinet is just the speaker. There's the thing your amp does, and then there's the thing the speaker of your amp does. And those are, strictly speaking, 2 different things, and each one has its own effect on your sound. So this lets you choose your amp and choose your cabinet. The Strymon Iridium also lets you do that. In fact, even the Milkman amp and the Benson amp in pro tip number 1, even though those are analog, they have an EQ thing that they're doing that is meant to represent the effect of a speaker. You can turn that on or off. I had it on in the thing you heard. Anyway, all the pedals in this video so far have some way to address the sound of the speaker. But this one, the Boss IR2, this one lets you do something with that none of the other ones do, which is you can only use the cabinet. You can bypass the amp part completely, like not use an amp, and just use the sound of one of its cabinets. Now, why would you ever want to do that? Well, one concern people have sometimes about using pedals that are amps or using amp modelers is that you're getting the exact same amp that everyone else who uses that pedal has. It's just a model of an amp, and it's like everyone bought the exact same model. So one way you could sort of Frankenstein your own amp would be to deactivate the amp in this, pick one of its cabinets, and then use an overdrive pedal or a distortion pedal and run that into this, and let the overdrive or the distortion pedal sort of become your amp. If you do it this way, it's going to sound better than just recording it out of an overdrive or just going direct from an overdrive, because you're getting the cabinet simulation from this, which will sort of just make it work better. So in what you're about to hear, I'm using the Greer Lightspeed overdrive pedal. I'm running this into this, but this is just acting as a cabinet, and this is basically acting as the amp. It sounded good. I thought it would sound okay. I thought it would sound good enough to have a place in the video. It sounded better than good. Like, this is a real sound I would use. One last thing, I'm double tracking myself again in this one, but this time I'm using 2 different pickups on my guitar. The larger pro tip here is anytime you're double tracking, it's cool for there to be some kind of difference in the tone between the 2 performances. In this case, it's not the amp or the cabinet. I'm using the same thing on both sides of the performance, but I just switched pickups, and that's what gives it a little more richness. For pro tip number 4, we're going to talk about the simplest, most low-tech approach to this, which is, can't you just take a pedal that's supposed to be an amp in a box pedal and run it into a real amplifier? And the answer is yes, you can do that. My recommendation is that when you do that, you should let your real amplifier be as clean and as neutral as possible. So put the tone knobs on noon, and don't turn up any of the preamp gain or the breakup or the distortion or the crunch. Don't start with any of that. Just let your amp be as basic as possible, and then turn on the amp in a box pedal and see how that sounds. For the example you're about to hear, the amp in a box pedal is the 59 sound from ZVEX, and I'm running this into a clean Fender amp that is just set to be nice and dumb and clean. This is another one where I thought it was going to sound good enough. I thought this was going to be the part in the video where I'm like, this is something you could do in a pinch if you had to, that is like adequately good. But I think it sounds a lot better than that. What you're about to hear is a sound I would use for its own sake, even as a guy who has all the other gear in this video. In pro tip number 4, we talked about running a pedal into an amp. The Benson Preamp is also a great pedal to be used that way. This pedal going into a clean amp, you can sort of color your sound with this pedal in a way that will be very amp-like. But if you have one of these and you also have an amp with an effects loop, there's something even fancier I want you to try, which is run your guitar into this pedal and then run this pedal into the return jack on your amp's effects loop. This is not the normal way to use an effects loop. If you do this, you're leaving the input jack on your amp unplugged, and you're leaving the send jack on your amp's effects loop unplugged. The idea, I call this the manual override. What we're doing here is we're using the effects loop as an insertion point to bring our signal in right at the last stage of the amp. We're skipping all the parts of the amp that is the amp being what it is, and all the parts where the amp colors your tone and has its way with your tone and sort of gives your tone its sonic identity as the amp. We're skipping all that, and we're bringing the signal in only at the part where the amp literally makes your signal louder, the part where it amplifies your signal. So if you do this, you can like harness the amplification power of your amplifier, but your tone will just be your guitar and the Benson Preamp or whatever pedal you choose to put in this place. For instance, the Boss Metal Zone is, believe it or not, a great choice for this. The Boss Metal Zone comes to life if you use this trick with that pedal. Anyway, here's an example. This is what it sounds like if I use an amp I have with an effects loop, but I don't use the effects loop and I just use that amp by itself. And this is what it sounds like if I run my guitar into the Benson Preamp, into the return jack of that amp's effects loop. I think that sounds better. I already knew the Benson Preamp would sound good this way. I've done it before. But part of the fun here is trying different pedals and finding out what's going to sound the best with the stuff you have.